Welcome to Oversharing with Rhonda, a podcast to amplify the voices of trailblazing women. My name is Rhonda Khan, and I believe in the power of authenticity, vulnerability, and storytelling to connect the masses. As a public speaking coach, speech therapist, performer, mom, and chronic oversharer, I'm often empowering others to own their stories. And what I've found is that the most transformative change happens when we share our journeys while being unapologetically ourselves. Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode. I'm excited, and I need excitement right now. Y'all, this has been a month. This has been a couple months. This has been a lifetime for people who are Black. You already know what has happened. We have watched a man be murdered by the police by kneeling on his neck for over 8 minutes. We have seen in the last 3 months countless Black people being murdered by the police, and it has been such a time for awareness and unrest and trauma for Black people. I know I have struggled with how to process this, what to say about it. As a business owner, I've had challenges with what do I express online about it? How do I engage with my clients, those who are Black and those who are not Black? What do I tell my kid who is 3, almost 4, about race and how to process this? And how do we exist in the world as Black people, knowing that this is happening and keeps happening? So I am very grateful that the first interview on this podcast is with an expert in this area, my new dear friend, Monique Melton. Monique Melton is an anti-racism educator, published author, international speaker, and host of the Shine Brighter Together podcast. She is also the founder of Shine Brighter Together, a community dedicated to healthy relationships and diverse unity. A natural, big, bold dreamer and a deeply rooted woman of faith, Monique believes it's not all about your comfort, it's about your growth. Monique Melton, welcome to Oversharing with Rhonda.
Thank you for having me.
So a bit about Monique and I. Monique and I were at a conference together a couple of months ago, right before quarantine and COVID just exploded. And this conference is called Alt Summit. And we both coordinated to host an event for the women of color at Alt. And it was such a wonderful community building, connecting conversation, and we both facilitated it. We had never met before Alt Summit. We didn't know each other, and we just instantly hit it off. It was choreographed almost. And so her work and her light and her energy was so transformative and just connected with mine. And I was like, I gotta have her on the podcast. So Monique, tell me who you are and tell me about the work that you do.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we really did. I felt like, wow, here's my long lost sister. But yes, so I am a lot of things. I am definitely a very spiritual, deeply introspective, compassionate, high energy, but also knows how to chill when I'm ready. Black woman, cisgender. My pronouns are she, her. And I am also a wife to my high school sweetheart. We met in weightlifting class. And I have 2 beautiful, absolutely brilliant, creative, genius Black children. They are absolutely phenomenal. And I do anti-racism education. I am a international speaker. I'm also a podcast host of the Shine Brighter Together podcast and also a author. The work that I do day in and day out, my husband's like, you work too much. I'm like, you are right. And my work is really centered around creating learning opportunities for people to explore and navigate and take on their journey of anti-racism, ultimately by centering Black liberation through amplifying the voices and the needs and the interests of Black women so that we can all live freely and fully in our humanity. And so it's a lot. It is a whole lot.
I love all of that. So I'm going to read a recent Instagram post from
Uh-oh.
Monique.
Wow, which one is it?
This came up today.
Okay.
All right. So the post reads, "There is no microwave approach to anti-racism. This work takes time. 400 plus years of oppression will not be undone in a 60-minute webinar." Whew.
Mm.
Monique, please tell us, what is anti-racism?
Everyone has a different definition and way that they approach it, but we got to give honor to where honor is due to our amazing Angela Davis, who coined the phrase, it's not enough to be non-racist, but to need to be anti-racist. And anti-racism, I actually use a definition from NAC, International Women in Global Solidarity, and I'm just going to paraphrase it, that it is this process of identifying and eliminating racism through systems, through attitudes, beliefs, relationships, basically from the inside out. That's the framework that I've created so that we can redistribute power. So that means political power, social power, economical power, and share it equitably. So it's quite a lofty concept that has a lot that goes into, and I actually have a podcast episode that I explain it in two parts because it is a pretty loaded definition. But one of the things that people have to understand with anti-racism is that one is not an identity. It's not something that you carry on or you describe yourself as, but instead it's an action. It's a verb. It's not an adjective. It is an action. It is something that you do. It's a daily practice. And people also need to understand that though the concept of anti-racism may be fairly new to you, the work that is necessary and that needs to be done has been here from the beginning. So when we think about Sojourner Truth or Frederick Douglass or James Baldwin, all these amazing ancestors who have been saying the same things that now us in the 2020s are saying, but in just different ways. The messages still remain: Black liberation. We are human beings. We will not stop fighting for our humanity. This is what we need. Like, all of this stuff has been said and expressed and illustrated before. It wasn't called anti-racism, but that's what it was. We didn't name it that, but it has a name. Thank you, Angela Davis. It has a name and it has a practice and a discipline now that people are beginning to pay attention to, thanks to the work of our ancestors who laid the foundation of it. We're building upon the blocks that they put down, and so knowing the history and knowing our people and knowing the sacrifices and the ongoing commitment that they made to building and restoring the legacy of Black liberation is necessary in doing this work. I didn't invent anti-racism. I didn't just start this project, one day and said, okay, here we go. There's been folks who've been doing this well before me, and there'll be folks who will do it well beyond me as well.
I love that. Speaking of, you didn't just start this work, how did you get into this work? What inspired you to be on this journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. So probably about a little over a decade ago, I was at a church service. And at the time, it was my home church that I went to regularly. And there was a guest pastor. And they called for an altar call. And I went to the altar with my husband. And we didn't have any children at the time. So it was a while ago. And I'll never forget very distinctly the guest pastor looking right at me and saying that I would bridge the gap between Black and white. And I was like, oh, at the time I was a professional makeup artist. I was not doing, active teaching about microaggressions. I was not out here creating resources on how to talk to white people about race. And so I didn't go home and create a anti-racism mastermind. I continued doing what I was doing. My education background, my formal education background is in sociology and psychology, and my grad school education level is in clinical counseling. So I had a foundation and a skill set to do the work that I'm doing. I just, at the time, was not actively engaging in it as a career. And so once my son got a little older And it was around the time where we had, and it doesn't seem like there's ever been a time where it hasn't been these national and collective grieving of Black lives being murdered by police. Police brutality has been in effect since the origin of the police, which is rooted in white supremacy. And so, but it was during that time, specifically Trayvon Martin and also Mike Brown, because it was also my hometown. And the target on my son's back was so undeniably glaring to me. It's not like I was oblivious. It's not like I didn't know the world that I was living in, but it was something about seeing that target and the way that I was able to see it on my son and seeing what was happening to Mike Brown. Like when I saw Mike Brown, I saw my son. And so it was like, whoa, I absolutely have to do more with my voice. And I recalled that sermon, that pastor speaking to me about that. And so I started using my voice. I started speaking more actively on my platform about racism and my own experiences and what needs to change. And I got a lot of backlash from people who I thought would be the first ones to champion and to stand along with me. Those were the first to rebuke me and to weaponize the Bible against me. And it was absolutely brutal. It was brutal and it intimidated me. It intimidated me to just kind of like fall back a little bit. I was like, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm ready to handle it. But the call just got more and more apparent. I could just feel it. It was just this tug to the work. And in 2018, I decided that I was going to finish writing my second book that I've been trying to write for so many years. And I kept running from the book because every time I would sit down to write the book, it would just tear me to shreds. And so one of the things I said in the book is that I would not put anything here in this book that I was not willing to do or answer myself. And so, in doing the work in the book, because the book is about digging deep and unraveling all of those, thoughts and experiences and all those things that mask who you really are. It's this journey of uncovering your authentic self. And I went on the journey too. And on that journey, I got really, really close and deeper to the voice of God in a way that was just it was just so profound. And I did a fast, and it was just during this time that it just was like, you know what, we're doing this, we're going to commit to this, we're going to do this full time. I stopped taking on business and brand development clients, and I said, okay, I'm going to focus on doing anti-racism, facilitating anti-racism work and education. And at the end of the year of 2018, I did my very first anti-racism, what I called at the time, mastermind. And there were 3 people who signed up, and we did the program. I had a guest lecturer, and it's gone from a 6-week program with 3 people to now a 12-week program that has a waiting list of over 1,000 people on it.
Wow.
And it has resources and documents and guides and assignment. I mean, it's evolved every single round. It evolves and it improves. And and just I've become more and more grounded in my work, but there's no turning back for me. I know absolutely this is the work that I'm called to do. And despite how challenging it is and how discouraging it is and how afraid, I was terrified to focus only on this work. I was absolutely terrified. I'm like, how am I going to do this from a business standpoint? How is this going to work in terms of a business and building a profitable business, but also in terms of safety and, emotional safety and physical. I mean, there was just and my children, wanting to make sure I protect my children as any mother does, and so it was just a lot. I was terrified. I'll never forget just sitting up being like, I don't think I can do this, but I am.
What I'm noticing is the beauty of this story, because I'm getting chills hearing this, because you weren't at all thinking that you would be doing anti-racism work.
No.
You were a makeup artist, you were working on branding and marketing, but you were called multiple times.
Yeah.
There was a multiple pull for you to do this, and then you had to just dive in. And I feel like that's very important for people to recognize, because I know from what you have explained, and I can only imagine the challenges of doing this work, like the people who turned against you that you weren't expecting, and probably so much more, because we're going to talk about the current moment. But what you said was there is no turning back. And I think a lot of people who do important work get to that point where, like, this is my work. This is my work. So I want to know what excites you and ignites you about doing this work.
Black liberation.
Mm,
That's what excites me. That's what motivates me. Knowing that I am contributing to the legacy of Black liberation that I might not fully be able to experience in my lifetime keeps me committed, keeps me motivated. I have to. My children, knowing that I am doing everything that I possibly can to ensure that they can live in a world where they can live freely in their Blackness, like that to me keeps me grounded when I'm ready to say, I quit. I can't, because I have moments where I break down crying. I'm exhausted. I'm discouraged. Like it's one thing to teach about racism. It's another thing to experience it.
yeah.
And so when things are happening to you and you know exactly what it is, and you could actually break it down and teach a whole lecture on it, but you're actually experiencing it, that puts you in a whole different level of consciousness, because it's one thing to experience something and to feel like that was wrong, but you didn't necessarily have the word or or able to conceptualize it, but you still feel like it was wrong. But it's another thing to see it happening, experiencing it, and to know it's wrong, to know exactly why it's wrong, to have just taught a lesson about why it's wrong, and to then have to experience it. It's really hard. It's absolutely challenging.
You are definitely having a moment right now. And I'll tell everybody who's listening, when I first reached out to Monique, we were talking about, there were many hashtags. There were two main ones that were going on, which is the tragic murder of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. At this point, we have, unfortunately, many other hashtags. Obviously, George Floyd and Rayshard Brooks and the multiple others that have been murdered. And it is a moment of, some would say, awakening of a lot of people. And people are paying attention to the word anti-racism and are looking for anti-racism educators. For y'all who don't know, Monique had, and it's not all about the followers, but I sometimes need to put it in numbers. Monique had about 17,000 followers before this current uprising and transformational moment happened. And at this point, she has like what, 225,000 or so in
Well,
1 week.
it went from 17 to 20 to now it's almost 300,000. But in one week, over 200,000 people. Like that is
Listen.
mind blowing.
So clearly there's work to do. And clearly Monique is one of those people that people are seeking to help them with this work. And what I'll say is that before the conference that we both attended, Alt Summit, Monique gave a talk about anti-racism to a mostly white woman audience. Let's get into it. And I left the conference earlier and I missed my girls' talk, but they were able to broadcast it. And so I made sure to watch it. And I didn't tell you this, Monique. I was watching with my husband and he was listening while he was, doing his thing. And he was like, she's killing it. And I was like, yes, she is. But Monique, most of your work is talking to white people about anti-racism
Yeah.
and white women. And when you talk about the difficulty, those of us who are Black women or other people of color, we understand what some of these conversations and pushback can be, but you are experiencing it and doing the work, and you're in this big moment of this. So what do white people need to know about
What
getting started on their anti-racism journey?
I feel like I have answered this question quite a bit, because everyone's like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And one of the questions that I propose back to folks who are asking that question is, why are you just now asking? What about your world? What about your life has given you the opportunity and the privilege to be this unconcerned and this unbothered by what's been going on with Black lives and the violence and the racialized violence against Black folks all these generations? That's one of the first questions, is really starting to look at yourself. Because a lot of times when people approach anti-racism, they approach it as if the problem is out there and that's it. It's those bad folks out there. It's those systems. It's those, well, a lot of times they don't understand that it is systems, but it's those things out there. It's those people. And they refuse to realize that you are a part of those people. You are a part of those systems. You contribute. You are complicit. You benefit from the very system that you refuse to acknowledge for your own life and how it shows up in you. And so that you benefit from white supremacy. And so you have to understand that in doing this work, it has absolutely everything to do with you, your beliefs, doing the work within yourself to uproot those beliefs, identify the ways in which you personally cause harm, while also doing the work externally. So it's all of it. It's not one or the other, but a lot of times people like to just go straight into the external, or they like to stay in the consumption stage, and they like to just go and read a bunch of Instagram posts or read the books or consume the podcast articles. And I tell people on my Insta stories all the time, I don't want you here just lurking around or passively consuming or just consuming with no intention to support, invest, or contribute. That's not helpful. It's not helpful. And so, and people get upset. We're like, well, I'm trying. Well, try harder, because Black lives are still being murdered in the street. So until our lives are free, till Black Lives Matter hashtag is no longer a necessary statement to declare and to work and to fight for, then there's more work for you to do. So get to it.
If you're not following at Mo Motivate, you are missing out. I'm going to put all the links at the end, but please follow Monique because daily she's dropping educational gems. Monique says on Instagram, allyship is not the goal. And I know that often sends shockwaves to people because there's so many white people and other people of color like, I want to be an ally. I need to be an ally, or identifying themselves as an ally. And I already know how you feel about it, but I want you to tell everybody else. Why is allyship not the goal? And what is the difference between allyship and being actively anti-racist or doing anti-racism work?
So here's the thing. Allyship, accomplice, all of those things are still titles. They're still identities that you can easily decide for yourself what it actually means. You can self-proclaim. You can decide how you're going to show up, if and when you're going to show up, which really only centers you. And it keeps you focused on yourself and what you're doing, and allows you to pat yourself on the back without really acknowledging or ever really listening to or following the direction of the folks who you're claiming to be an ally to. And so here's another thing about that. I also am like, I'm a cisgender Black woman, which means that I hold privilege because of being a cisgender. That means that when I am in community, especially with trans women, there are certain things that I can do, whether I'm trying or not, that can cause serious harm. And it is not for me to decide, oh, I'm an ally, so I'm a good one. I'm one of the good ones. No, it is for me to decide to stay responsible for my actions, to stay committed to listening and to honoring and to amplifying their voices and making sure that I'm doing whatever is necessary. When you start taking it on as a noun or as an identity, you take this very passive approach to actively doing anything because you think you've arrived. You think you've done what is necessary, but you've not, because there's no destination in this. There's the ongoing process. People like names, they like titles, they like categories, because people like to try to make sense of the world. They like to make sense and organize things to know what to expect. Who are the good ones? Who are the bad ones? But here's the thing, it's not binary like that. Because in 1 minute, you can be engaging in anti-racism, and in another minute, you could be upholding white supremacy, all in the same 30-minute time span. And so in 1 minute you could say I'm an ally, but the next minute you could be weaponizing your whiteness. And I encourage everyone to read Catrice Jackson's book, The Becky Code, where she talks about the weapons of whiteness. But the next minute you can be weaponizing that and causing harm. So it's not that binary. It is very much full of nuance. It's ongoing, which is why you must stay committed to it daily. And so doing the work of anti-racism and calling yourself an ally it's really, people love the phrase, and I get it. When I first started talking about race, I even used the phrase, but I quickly stopped, because when I really examined it and I also observed the way that white people were using it, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is not the goal. The goal is to end the violence against Black folks. There's no title needed. Just get to work.
Yes. Yes. Just get to work. This is a whole word that I think I just want to plaster everywhere I am, because I am a part of so many conversations and spaces where everybody's trying to figure out how to be an ally. And that ain't even what you need to be doing right now.
Just figure out how to engage in anti-racism without causing more harm. Because folks will then start doing anti-racism work and then they just start reinforcing white supremacy all over again. And so it's like, well, this isn't it. It's like if you asked me to bring you spaghetti for dinner and you're like, hey, I'm hungry. Can you bring me spaghetti? I'm like, sure. And then I bring you a basketball. What? Well, sure. A basketball is fun when we out here playing basketball, but I don't want to eat the basketball. And so you got people out here trying to engage in anti-racism and saying, I'm doing the work, and they're painting murals of Black Lives Matter when we're talking about reparations and defunding the police. Sure, the mural is beautiful, but are you also putting money into the communities that are being most marginalized and silenced right now? Black trans women, when they are murdered, no one is really amplifying that, talking about that, fighting about that. So while you spending time painting that mural, why don't you go and learn more about how to amplify the voices of Black trans women?
I feel like you have given people so much in this conversation. And I think we might have to do a part 2, girl, because there's so many things that I want to ask. But I want to pivot it to us, Black women, Black people. In this current time, those of you who are anti-racism educators and workers like yourself are definitely being asked to do so much work that you're already doing. People who are not anti-racism educators, or all the terms in between, but are working in spaces where there are a lot of white people, or predominantly white spaces, or working in even multiple spaces, are now getting a lot of requests and attention in not always helpful ways. But right now it's a specifically draining time to be a Black person, to be a Black professional. What would you say for us to take care of us and protect ourselves in this time?
I want to say that Black people, you do not owe anybody anything. Okay? Our ancestors did enough for free. If you're now all being asked to lead the diversity panel and you have absolutely no interest, desire, or even any experience in doing that, and scratch the experience because you're Black. So don't think that because you don't have formal education that you can't do it. But if you don't want to do it, that's the thing. If you don't want to do it and you don't feel like you would benefit in doing that, but instead you're being tokenized, don't push back. Hopefully you can push back in a way without jeopardizing your job, because that's the thing. We always have to calculate the cost when we're standing for ourselves. And so I think that it is absolutely absurd that these organizations are expecting the nearby Black person to be the one to lead the way for the diversity and inclusion efforts for the brand, when it's like, I actually came here because I was interested in computer software engineering. Like, I mean, sure, I can tell you my experience, and my experience is absolutely valid and doesn't need to be affirmed by a degree or educational program, but I actually don't want to lead that, So it's like, I think just expecting that the nearby Black person needs to be the one to create these educational learning opportunities is that ended up like, that's problematic. Why not go to the Black folks who are out here consenting to do that and that are being paid to do that? Bring those folks in here. And I would say for Black folks who are, feeling really exhausted by all the white people coming to them, asking them questions and, well, tell me about this and what are your thoughts on this and is this racist? Just coming to you as if you're like I tell people, I'm not 1-800 phone a Black girl. I don't operate a 24/7 anti-racism hotline. Like I'm not a help desk. So neither are you. You can tell people, which people don't like this. People can't stand it when Black women, especially Black women, set boundaries. People cannot stand it. They lose all sense of self. And that has everything to do with white supremacy though. And so, but saying I'm not interested in having this conversation with you, that's a boundary that you don't have to have that conversation if you don't want to. When I'm in relationships with people who are white, I have to let it be known in the beginning because of the work I do. They're like, oh, wow, jackpot. Like, here we are, somebody who can teach me all my ways. And it's like, sign up for the course. We out having lunch. I'm not here for that.
Monique, I want to talk to you about everything all day, girl. But one thing I want to know, you have such passion and energy with the work that you do. Do you have a personal thing you motivated that represents you and your energy? Like, yeah, that's me. What would that song be?
Okay, it changes for the season, and I'm gonna tell you right now, the song that we've been playing, it's so accurate because when I first started doing this work, a lot of people resisted, they pushed back, they didn't want to have nothing to do with me, they disowned me, and so the song that's been so like for the past 3.5 weeks is back then they didn't want me, now I'm hot, they all over.
You know, I saw that on your Instagram stories and I was like, let me text her. Like, yes.
Because you know it's true. Like they didn't want nothing to do with me. And now, you know, now that you see my name on these different articles, you're like, oh, well, maybe she does have something to say. I'm saying the same stuff.
Monique, how can people get in touch with you and work with you?
Yeah, so they want to connect with me on Instagram, go on over to Mo Motivate. And then if they're interested in speaking or programs, classes, everything is on my website at moniquemelton.com.
Monique, this has been a pleasure. We're going to talk again. Thank you for being you and doing all the amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you for being you and doing all the amazing work you're doing. We shine brighter together, sis.
Yes, sis.
Yes, I hope you all learned something today with Miss Monique Melton. Monique is, again, one of those people that when you meet her, you will never forget her. Her passion for educating and liberating the masses is a force to behold. And I am just so grateful that she was able to be a part of this podcast. Really, really, really dive into what anti-racism means to you. Whether you are a Black person listening to this, a person of color, and especially those who do not identify as either. Think about really what the work is about. One of the biggest things I got from her, and I continue to start to share to people, is that allyship is not the goal. And it's difficult because that's controversial, right? People think, oh, shouldn't I become an ally? I should be an ally. Ally is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But is your allyship about you or about doing the work? Are you doing the work? Are you doing the work to dismantle systemic racism? Are you working to become anti-racist yourself? Are you working on your family, your friends, whoever else, the systems that you're a part of? What is the work you're doing? That's what matters more than a title. And that's what I got from what Monique was saying. Please, please, please follow Monique at Mo Motivate. Please follow her, learn her work, hire her to speak, get her to train you, take her Shine courses, join her community, because you will not regret learning the things you learned. Thanks for tuning in to Oversharing with Rhonda. I'll see you soon. Bye.